Welcome back. My name is Ashley McKenzie. This is Structures of Life taught in third grade in the Boston Public School System. We're on to Investigation 3, Make the Crawfish. Crawdad, crayfish, mudbug, whatever you want to call it. This takes 5 class sessions. You should have ordered the crayfish while doing Investigation 1. If you didn't, order it now and find a filler for the next 10 days before it comes. So some handling tips for the crawfish, since a lot of people find them kind of scary. Hold them on the carapace. The carapace is the back. As close to those front claws as possible to avoid being pinched. Even if they do pinch you, they're not all that big. It's not going to hurt that bad. Reach from the tail end, not from the face. Do not squeeze too hard and practice, practice, practice. They love to eat dry cat food 1 to 2 times a week for protein and lettuce. I find that they like the lettuce a lot better than the Elodia, which is provided in the materials. You can either feed them in a clean basin daily, or you can feed them, have a separate feeding container. I like to clean them in one, keep them in one basin, feed them lettuce daily, keep it in so they can hide in it, and then I just clean them every day, every other day to avoid stinkage. The student learning outcomes for this are students are going to be able to observe the structures and behaviors of crawfish. They're going to investigate territorial behaviors of the crawfish. They're going to care for, feed, monitor, and observe the crayfish over a period of time. Part 1, Meet the Crayfish. So this takes 1 class session. The crawfish are going to arrive in your school with something that looks like a box. And the box might have air holes. I've found over the past couple of years they actually come in Chinese takeout food containers sometimes. You want to take them out as soon as possible. So you know when they're coming because you set up the date. So have aged tap water available. Put it out at least 48 hours ahead of time. Let the water sit so some of the chemicals can come out. To tell the difference between male and female. So the female have long swimmerette that point downward. And they also have an egg pore, which is in between the last set of walking legs. The male have 2 modified swimmerette that point upwards towards the eyes. And that's what I tell the students. Having students play with the crawfish, you want to make sure that they're also taught and you demonstrate how to hold them. Students are going to love to hold them. This is one of my noisiest units, but I use the crawfish as kind of my management piece. I say the more quiet you are, the more active they'll be. If you're loud, you're going to scare them. We're not going to be able to pick them up if they're scared. They're more likely to pinch. Oftentimes they'll say, my crawfish isn't moving. And I'll say, well, your table's too loud. That's why they're not moving. So you use the crawfish, get them on your side, keep the quiet class. And it really does work by telling them the quieter they are, the more movement and normal behaviors from the crawfish. Part 2, the crawfish habitat. This also lasts 1 class session. You're going to need the basins, and that's the Elodia floating in the tank that you can see, some gravel, the cat food, in the pitcher. I would also have lettuce because I found that they really love lettuce. Doesn't matter what time, romaine, iceberg, whatever you want to feed them. So you're going to start the class by talking to the students about crawfish needs. They hopefully will say the 5 basic needs that all living things need. And if there's time, you can set up the 2 habitats together as a class. If you find that you ran out of time, you can set these 2 ahead of time. And after they go over the basic needs, you bring them out pre-set up and show them that. This would be one way to save time for the unit. Part 3, crayfish at home. 1 class session, you're going to need them in their homes. You're going to need an empty basin, and you're going to need the plant pots. Now, remind the students that to see the true behavior of the crawfish, they're going to need to be almost silent. Each group gets 1 set up. However, I have 1 student report out the answers. So students will need to make sure that they see that the homes have different shapes on them. So there's triangles, rectangles, circles, squares. They need to make sure that they take note of that for this investigation, and they follow the crawfish behavior steps exactly as they are. There's an embedded assessment, as there are in all investigations. And this one's called Meet the Crayfish, and it's just a good checkpoint to see any misconceptions. And this one is just comparing and contrasting the crawfish to different animals. So I have them write on the top line how they're the same, on the bottom line how they're different. And they don't have to do complete sentences, I tell them, because there's not enough room. Part 4, Crawfish Territory. This takes 2 short class sessions and additional observation time. So this is going to be spread out over a week to observe the crayfish's behavior when it comes to territory. Again, make sure they notice the different shapes on the houses. And you're going to need to attach yarn to the carapaces of the crawfish before the students come. Now, some tips that I've learned on how to do this. You're going to want to take them out of the container altogether, dry off their back, let them walk around the table for a minute or two with a dry back, dry off the back again with another tissue, make sure it's completely dry. Then you're going to want to use different colored yarn, put the yarn on their back, not long enough that it floats in the water and another crawfish will try to eat it. You want it to stay on their back, and then put the duct tape on the carapace. This won't hurt the crawfish, I promise. And you want to make sure that it stays on, so that's why it's important to make sure it's nice and dry. Then you can let it sit for another minute, just so that duct tape has a minute to sit before being immersed in water, and then place it in the water. And basically what the students are going to do is see what house it goes in. Does the same crawfish stay in the same house? Does it move houses? They're just going to find out if they're territorial animals or not. Investigate further. Since there are shortened lessons in this investigation, what I find is that we have some extra time on our hands. And usually I use this extra time to investigate further with the crawfish territories. I take right from the teacher folio. In Investigation 3, at the very back of the folio, there's an Investigate Further section. And it just has questions here. So you can either assign each group a question, or you could assign the entire class one question. It depends on what you want to do and how you want to work that.